This is Saints Talk, the official podcast of NewOrleans.Football. Make sure you guys go get in the web browser, do it on your phone, do it on your computer, wherever you do it. It's all good. Go to NewOrleans.Football/subscribe. Pick a tier. Any way you want to get in. Got options available for you. Everything is on the site. We got news, analysis, video sections, podcast sessions, everything you want, right? Also, we switching it up a little bit. I know you guys can see it. Make sure you guys follow Nick on YouTube. Just search Nick Underhill. Periscope, Nick_Underhill, and coming new, Twitch.tv. I was saving that one for last. So NewOrleans.Football on Twitch. Go there, search it, join, do whatever you need to do. We're gonna be posting some things live, some live video coming up. Many different platforms you guys can jump on and find one. So just go there and check us out. Nick, what's up?
I think the Saints are the Saints finally at this point. The team put together the type of game that we've been waiting for them to put together. And, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if they can maintain it. But I think at this point, this is the most encouraged that I've been at any point covering this team since 2014. Yeah. I've never seen them play this well. I don't know if I've ever seen a football team play as well as they did during that first half, and they had a fumble. I mean, that was an insane half of football. And they could have put 50 on the Bucks, man. They could have easily put 50 on the Bucks, but they pulled up and they showed them a little bit of mercy in the second half. But yeah, that was a crazy performance.
That game was wild, and I can't remember, and we've seen the Saints beat the brakes off some teams before. I remember the 2011 Colts game. It comes to mind, and that was 62-7. But those were the Colts, and they were not good that year. I don't remember the last time they beat a team that is, by most people considered a contender, right? I mean, people had the Bucks as, I think they was up to the number 2 or number 3 team in the power rankings or something along those lines. And I mean, they basically dismantled them in every way possible. I'm talking offense, defense, special teams, coaching, dancing after turnovers. I mean, they just basically, they swept them off the field. And so that may be the most impressive win I've seen the Saints have against a good team. I can't think of anything that matches that. And they beat the Patriots pretty good in the Super Bowl season, but this was a different level.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the thing is we were kind of waiting to see this performance, and I think that we both were optimistic that they could put it together. I mean, we talked about how this was kind of like the preseason coming into this one. I didn't think they were going to do this, not to this level. I mean, this was out of this world. But I mean, there was a little bit of a slow build to it. There were some little things the mistakes they were making on defense. You saw them periodically get corrected, little step by step. This one, they kind of put it all together. I wouldn't say that it was a perfect performance. I think there was some pass rush that covered up a couple coverage snafus here and there. Right. But I mean, on a good team, you have those things working hand in hand, and you very rarely are going to play a totally perfect game in all phases, all areas of the defense, and you need the pass rush to be able to be there for you. So, yep, I don't know. I mean, if they can play like this, the story I wrote is that they can win the Super Bowl. And privately before this game, I told you that I thought they were going to win the Super Bowl.
I knew you was going there.
Hey, you hit me up like I was crazy, and that still might be overstating things. And I don't think this is going to be the team we're going to see every single week. I think there's going to be step back, and then there's going to be a step forward. The thing is they just need to handle this like LeBron's Cavs, just taking the regular season slow, ramp up, and if you're good by Christmas in this weird season, I think that's you're good to go. But we've seen it now, and I don't think that you can backslide too much off of this one. I mean, now the standard's set, and we're going to hold them to it, and they've shown us what they can do, and this is what they need to be every week.
Yeah.
Well, not this. This asking for this is outrageous, but better than they have been. A top 10 defense, top 12 defense. I think it's a fair ask at this point after they've shown us what they can do.
I'm with you. Hey guys, I just want to give everyone a reminder. Go to NewOrleans.Football. This film study posted today. I want to say it was today. There's a post-game article that Nick wrote. Read that one first, and then follow it up checking out the film study article. That article was long, man. I feel like it was a few more words in that one, so that was a good read. Make sure you guys go check it out. He's getting into what they were doing on the first drive, individual players, how guys lined up, formations that they use. The first article has the different formations that they use. He always does the 3 up and 3 down after the game. Good games, you may have to put a little bit more up, a little few down. You guys can figure that out. So first and foremost, just make sure you check that out because it's a lot of information in the article, and we can't rehash it word for word. We'll cover some things, but the best information is there. Okay, offense. Let's get into the offense. It's so hard to know where to start because everyone ate a little bit. My guy Big Fish finally showed up. I've been waiting for him like all season. Like, man, don't make me look bad. Just guys stepping up, right? I mean, you got Thomas, Callaway, Sanders, Traquan, Harris, all three tight ends caught a pass, running backs. I mean, what was up, man? What was going through Sean Payton's mind when he came up with the game plan against the Bucs? Because it seems like everything was working.
Man, some of the stuff they did in this game was some of the best coaching that I've seen from him in all my time breaking down these games. And I guess we shouldn't be too surprised about it because this is a very hyped team. And when Sean has something to prove, Sean proved his points. I think the best thing they did in this game was the way that they used Taysom Hill. I mean, I think early in the season, the criticism on that package was fair because it was a little bit one-dimensional, and they were so quick to abandon it. When things were going well for them, they kind of just gave up on it very, very quickly. And, I don't think that it was always telling the story that they wanted to tell. And I think when that package is at its best, it's setting things up. And sometimes it's 1 week to the next week. It's not always an immediate payoff, but, they kind of created a tendency with him. In all the criticisms about it, they might have just been creating a tendency to go off tendency. And on the play where he threw the ball to Jared Cook for the 20-some yard gain, they got them in a cover 0. There were no safeties back there. Everybody's cheating up, and they hit him with it down the field. And then later in the game, Taysom has a 20-some yard run. And on that play, they're playing him honestly now, and the safety's back playing 20 yards deep. And that kind of one thing goes into the other. And then there was a play where Taysom made a 20-yard reception, and it's the same exact passing concept that he threw the pass to Jared Cook from. And it's just those little subtle moments of brilliance from Peyton that, that's when you see it. And it's just like he reminds you, and it's there all the time, and it's easy to take for granted, but sometimes he goes above and beyond, and he just kind of reminds you of who he is and why he's regarded the way he's regarded.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because in your article today, you spoke about how Peyton said that he called like the worst game like that he's ever called, or whatever term that he used, to talk about his play calling in the first game. And so you flip it on the other side and you look at this game, and I'm not going to say it's the best game that he's ever called, but man, try to think of something on that level against a team that's that good, right? And, you're not just going against some team that's, maybe good on one side of the ball. Or, they had a top defense, right? I mean, everyone has been talking about the Bucs defense. Obviously, the offense, they get a lot of attention to with Brady and whatnot. And I mean, he just is he is something about this team. Is something about that scheme. Is something about Sean where, he comes ready and they come against these guys. And I think the level of competition, I think it drives a level of competitiveness just amongst human beings, right? I mean, if you play the Bears, it's easier to get up for the Bears than it is for the Bucs. And, ideally you try to coach against that. But yeah, I do think it's something there. I think there's a human element to just getting up and being a little bit more motivated to go against someone. And there's some history there too, obviously. So everything went well. I think Sean, he coached his butt off and he got his guys ready. And, some of the things like that you were saying that he was doing schematically, moving guys around. I mean, you saw the Bucs players right before the snap, they're throwing their hands up, trying to figure out where guys are, trying to get guys to get some help. Hey, this guy, you're not covering where you're supposed to be covering. You saw Levante David do it. That lets you know that the defense is they're a little bit off, right? And they're not on top of things. And I just think that just goes to show the game planning that went into this game, and the tendencies that they knew the Bucs would show and how they attacked them. So I don't know how you can coach a better game offensively than Sean Payton just did. I'm pretty sure he's going to try to top it. I'm pretty sure there's some plays he didn't like, but holistically, I just think that you got to give that coaching offensively. You definitely got to get a 10 out of 10. So Sean was amazing. What about Drew? What did you see from Drew this game? Is he washed up? Are they gonna start Jameis going forward?
The Drew washed up stuff was the stupidest thing in the world, and I think the juxtaposition between the two, like the way both quarterbacks 40-year-old quarterbacks are viewed in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
Breeze, if he had this game in week 1, like would they have had the conversation? They should have. If you're gonna have that conversation about Drew after week 1, you should have had it about Brady. But look, they gave him, he put some skins on the wall, and there was time to build up to it, and he had his players on the field with him, and he got off to a decent start. But in isolation, if you're going to react to one game, like where's the reaction to this? It's just stupid. Yeah. It was such a stupid conversation, and I'm glad that this podcast, was the like let's wait and see show, because. Man. I mean, obviously he was going to get back to it. But man, in this game, he was as sharp as he was. But here's the other thing too, like all the conversation about like, oh, he doesn't throw the ball. He only threw the ball down the field over 20 yards once in this game. Like, where's the conversation on that? You aren't having it because everything else looked right. And that was the whole point of what we were saying the whole time. Like, his demise is not going to be judged by 20-yard passes. It's going to be judged by the accuracy on a 9-yard pass. And you dial back in and everybody's on point. But the throw to Troutman on the touchdown, like I thought that route was superb. Big Fish did his thing, little double move, some complexity.
Big Fish, little double.
But hey, seeing him detail his routes and do things well, that's a big deal, and that kind of shows some growth from him. But that pass, like Drew laced it between a linebacker sitting underneath and a guy in coverage. It was a great pass.
I tweeted about it. I was like, the ball location on that throw was ridiculous. I mean, you put that football another inch or two another way, and it's I mean, he just put it exactly where it needed to be, right over the linebacker's hand, right in front of I think it was a safety back, lurking a little bit behind, but. Yeah, I mean, that's as good as you can. That's as good as you can put the ball. I thought Drew was good, as he absolutely needed to be this game. And if that's the player, I mean, the obviously the one play that stands out is I think they're trying to run a screen to Kamara, and JPP kind of slipped. And I want to say Drew, I don't know if he didn't know him there, or he assumed that he slipped. I'm not sure exactly what was going through his head, but it when I looked at it, it wasn't as close as an interception as it looked like live. Live, it like it hit his hands directly, but in reality, it kind of hit the outside of one of his hands. So it really wasn't that close to being an interception, but it was the closest thing they got to an interception all game. And so that just goes to show you how good of a game he had. I thought he was probably as good as he's been all year. Definitely.
Yeah, he got up quick from that. He got a nub on it, and he got up quick.
Yeah. Man, he was fighting for his life out there.
Oh man, but he. Otherwise, I thought he was pretty good. But look, the other thing, too, is I feel like Drew was a little bit more aggressive in this game than I've seen him throughout the season. And, I mean, that's a good thing. He doesn't need to be ultra-conservative. I don't want to see him taking too many risks, but it's good to see him dialed in enough and to trust these guys enough to be trying to make some aggressive throws even with a lead. So, I mean, the guys they have on offense, man, like this might be –
Segue. Wow. Talk about
like,
it.
Is it the best group? Like, it might be the best group. 2016 might have had more talent. It just at the receiver position, just receiver isolated. But I think the players on this team fit him better. 2016 was kind of the end of an era for that offense. They got rid of Cooks for a reason because there are multiple things, but most of all, he no longer really fits the philosophy. So it's hard to argue for that group. It's hard. I'm not going to make a comparison to 2011 or whatever. It's hard to know how good those players were because Drew was like prime, lift everybody up, make everybody better, give me anybody, and they're going to be outstanding.
I mean, I think
this group's really good.
Yeah, I think you could say Mike Thomas is the best receiver Drew's ever had, right?
Go there. Yeah.
I think you can say Alvin Kamara is the best running back he's ever had.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Emmanuel Sanders is probably the best. I don't want to say best number 2 because you got Cooks and. You had Cooks and Mike Thomas that year. So
he hasn't done enough for me to crown him yet. He's really good, and he could end up holding that. But I mean, I'm not gonna be able to give that to him just yet. Like, he's not even like.
he's got a
I don't
long way
know.
to go. But
Yeah,
he's got a long way to go. He's got a long, and
way to go.
they had three number one wide receivers. I mean, 3 wide receivers that. Well, I know 1 year Cooks and Thomas had 1,000. I'm not. I forget about Snead, but I remember 1 year all those guys had a lot of weapons. So I'm with you. I'm not willing to necessarily say it was the best, but I don't think it's. I think it's a conversation maybe to be had there, and it maybe this team they're deeper in weapons, right? Like, who's your Taysom Hill on that team, right? Who's your Deontay Harris, who you can throw the ball to and he can create something, right? I mean, so I think that other team maybe been like more top heavy as it pertains to talent, but
you just said who's your Taysom Hill? Like, who's anybody's Taysom Hill? Come on, man. They like invented a player, and you're like, well,
he is a creative player, though, right? He's like the wide receiver, H-back, tight end, quarterback, gunner, punt blocker. Just man, and he's like this Mormon guy who's just like the best football player in the game. I love it. You got me. There's no say. So it's just so many different. This team can hit you so many different ways. They can hit you so many different ways, and I think that's gonna serve them well, because I think it is something to be said for defense to not know what is going to hit them, and you saw that happen this Sunday night. The Bucs had no idea. Taysom doesn't throw. Wait a minute, now he's throwing. Okay, now you're in 0-man coverage. Jared Cook is running, a crossing route. It's like there's just so many things you can do with the team at full strength.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, 17 was a pretty good team too. Like with Ted Ginn, he was playing well that year. Thomas was good that year. Willie got blackballed. If Willie hadn't gotten blackballed, they might. Yeah,
I think Willie kind of like kills you. Yeah, I think the Willie year. Yeah, that was a.
I think since 17, it's easily, man, and it doesn't even really matter. Just comparatively speaking, to last year, the upgrade between the groups of players is it's outrageous. Like, you're going 4, 5, 6 deep this year, and last year you had 1.5. Like, Alvin, he was up there, but he wasn't full strength Alvin. So who else was there? The Mike absence, like, kind of paid off. I thought that was like one of the dumbest talking points. But
yeah. I mean, here's the thing, though. And I know we've said this before. I think it bears repeating. Like, this offense was basically built around that style of player, right? And he was gone from week 1 to week 8 or 9. I forget we're at that part in the season where I forget what week it is, but he was gone that whole time. And so you have to analyze the offense under those lenses, right? You have to acknowledge that. And it's not necessarily you're making an excuse, but it's more like, okay, well, this is a big part of the offense that's missing, right? Just like if you take the Derrick Henry away from the Titans, that's not the same offense, right? And so I just think I think people need to look at it under those lenses. And when you say, okay, the offense was this and that and this, okay, well, they were running out there with Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith at wide receiver. So I just think people got to be a little bit careful how they analyze that part of the season. So
do you want to go back to the defense and just how Marshawn Lattimore was a Hall of Famer again?
Let's start with Marshawn, because I'm you know what? Take the floor. I need your take on this one, because this guy, he's a chameleon, man. I don't know what you're gonna get.
Frankly, I think he might be kind of outrageous in the second half of the season, because there's the Julio games, Tyreek Hill. He's going to show up. Mm-hmm. He's going to show up for at least half of the rest of the season, like fully powered Marshawn. And fully powered Marshawn is legitimately a Hall of Fame cornerback. Like, the dude that played on Sunday night, if he played like that every week, like, he's one of the greatest cornerbacks of all time. And it's so frustrating because he has that level of talent. He just doesn't have the consistency that goes with it. Mm-hmm. And, like, somebody like Stephon Gilmore, like, the difference between him and Lattimore is, like, Gilmore practices every day, like he's up against Mike Evans. And, Marshawn has talked about needing to bring that consistency. He admitted this week that he gets fired up for this game based off of what happened his rookie year when they got in that little shoving match. But, man, the way he played was incredible. And then he's locking down his side of the field. they're able to bracket the slot. The slot has been a problem in other games, so now you can afford that extra attention against a high level player, and they protected themselves there. And it's just, you see, like, across the board what it does for you. And if he can just bring that every single week, like, you know, before the season, like, my whole thing was like, oh, if Alvin stays healthy, they win the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Like, I'm gonna just assume Alvin's gonna be okay. We don't know, but like, the new caveat is if Marshawn can play 80% of Mike Evans the whole season, not even the whole season, if he just finds that gear in the playoffs, like, that's what it's gonna take. Yeah, he's so talented, man. It's unbelievable some of the things he can do.
It's frustrating. I just want him to be a good player, because, you know, listen, there's times during the season where you look at his play and you're like, all right, can't sign the guy. You can't. How do you give this guy? How do you pay this guy? Right, the contract that he's going to command when you're not sure what you're going to get week to week, you know, from him. Like, you just don't know. He can be one thing one minute and something totally different the next. And then he reminds you who he is. Then he reminds you that he can take one side of the field and erase it, just totally erase it. And you ask any defensive coordinator how big of an advantage you get from just saying, okay, safety, right? Cover this guy. We're gonna leave you over here in zero coverage. You basically you can flood that side of the field a little bit more. Maybe it's not half the side of the field. Maybe it's another receiver over there, but you still have less space to operate as a defense, which is a good thing because the offense has fewer passing lanes. So that, along with, and we'll get into some of the other things that the defense has going on, it's a total game changer. It fundamentally changes the defense. The Marshawn that we saw at certain points early in the season compared to the guy who we saw Sunday night, it's a total game changer. And, you know, just to see what he can do when he want to do it, it's, again, like I said, it's a little bit frustrating because you know that he can just come out and do that every weekend. You know, I think someone just said in the chat, like, he needs to get in fight. He needs to get him in a fight with with said wide receiver every week, and, you know, whatever it takes, man. I don't know. Someone needs to lie to him, but that guy is elite. That guy is elite. He may show up once or twice a year, depending on who the wide receiver is. You got Julio coming. You mentioned Tyreek Hill. That's an elite player, and the Saints need a little bit more of that, a lot more of that.
Look, it wasn't just him, though. I mean, like, the whole secondary finally figured out what it was doing. And, you know, one of the things they did in this game, it was a little bit more straight up man. And they played some cover 4 concepts, but, you know, it's press within those quarters. Yeah. And that stuff, you know, they have the guys to play that. And you aren't seeing the coverage bust because go cover the guy. Like, that's basically what they were doing. I mean, there was some 2 safety stuff, but even like the stuff that looked like cover 2, it looked like cover 2 man. Like, it just wasn't a whole lot of zone. There were a couple of plays that cover 6, but it wasn't overly complicated. And I don't mean that to say that, like, the stuff they do in other weeks is too complicated. Like, if you're an NFL cornerback, you got to be able to execute a cover 2 coverage. Like, it's really basic stuff. Some of the stuff they do in cover 3 is a little bit more complex, but we saw them fix that throughout the year.
Yep.
So it's just executing assignments and taking every game seriously. We talked so much this offseason about, like, how good the secondary was and how they were going to do this, how they were going to do that. Yeah. Seeing it, this is it. Like, this is it. This is what they can do. And if they're organized and they play well, like, we're talking about Marshawn on the other side. Jackrabbit was unbelievable.
He was good. He was good.
On the inside, CD Deuce held it down. He had some help from the safeties.
Malcolm
Jenkins.
Oh my gosh,
he's a tight end killer. Like, that's why he's here, and they brought him in. And maybe the thing we underrated with this whole group is just the acclimation period. And it's like, oh well, they're a veteran defense, all this stuff. Well, Malcolm's new. Vaughn's gone. I think Vaughn was kind of like a leader in that group.
He was.
Jackrabbit had 2 games and, you know, a couple of weeks last year. Like, he was basically new to the group. So maybe it just took a little bit of time for everybody to get on the same page. And this was the solidification of the acclimation process. We'll see. I mean, I'm not like going to go put my money on them being this team every week. So, you know, just like with the Drew thing, it's like, oh, we'll wait and see how it goes. Like, that's how I think I'm going to go with the defense, because there's been enough bad that the first, I'm not going to, go chase the first smile, but that was, they were smiling and it looked good. And
you can't delete that tape from earlier this year, but you can, you kind of see what they can do. I think you made a good point about them getting acclimated, because during the broadcast, I think it was Collinsworth, and he mentioned that he spoke with, I want to say it was either DA or Malcolm Jenkins. And he was speaking about, hey, well, what we did in Philly was so different than what they're doing in New Orleans. And DA is finally kind of starting to figure out how to make the best use of Malcolm Jenkins. And Malcolm Jenkins is finally starting to figure out some of the things that DA wants him to do. So I think the big thing, and we're going to get in. Man, I can't wait to talk about the D-line, because that's my favorite group on the team. But I think the good thing that you can say about this team, in starting with the defense, and you can definitely push it to the offense. I think we're gonna have to show special teams a little bit of love here tonight too, because Harris they played on the right side of the field this past game, but this is an ascending team, right? And that's what you want to be doing as the season go on. And we spoke about Coach Payton talking about it earlier this year. He said, hey, look, there's a handful of teams that are still getting used to it, and there's some teams that had a good start. We're one of those teams that are still figuring things out. And I think he was spot on with it, because as we said, I think this team is improving, from the looks of this game, they're going to be improving week to week. So let's go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just getting into it. My biggest takeaway from this game is that, in the main point I think we need to make.
I know where you're going.
Is that it's time to treat Trey Henderson like he's a legitimate pass rusher. He's third in the NFL in sacks. The guy brings it every single week. Look, I mean, it's like everybody kind of makes these jokes like, oh, he gets these cleanup sacks and all that other stuff, but he's doing it every week. There's a lot of guys that play on teams with other good defensive linemen, and they don't have 7.5 sacks.
Yeah.
And I think you can kind of see with the way he's playing and the way he's grown, there's a little bit of a difference in what he's doing. And he's always been somebody that's worked extremely hard in his craft. I think his effort shows up on the field. They kind of call him a try hard at practice and everything, because he goes way too hard on every rep. But I mean, I think that mentality is what pays off on the field for him, is that kind of nonstop motor. And I'm not trying to roll out the bag of cliches here, but that's just kind of who he is. He's just a hardworking player that's maybe not as supremely talented as other people, but I think that he's maximized his physical gifts. I think his mental ability as a pass rusher has come up a little bit with it too. And I think everything's just blended together that he's able to take advantage of his circumstances. And there's a lot of value in just being that guy that, every now and then is going to go out there and dominate a player like Donovan Smith. Even the good defensive, the people that we talk about is the great defensive ends, they do that too. Cam's a guy that racks up a lot of stats against, you're supposed to win specific matchups when you have an advantage.
Yeah.
He's doing that, and then he's taking advantage of his other opportunities too. And I just think it's time to kind of view him through a more serious light, as opposed to somebody it's oh, well, Cam's awesome, Marcus is awesome, and here's the little brother. Trey's not the little brother. He's running with him now, and in some ways he's outproducing. I don't think sacks are the end all be all. You see Cam creating stuff for him. You see other people doing stuff, but the man's got numbers.
Mr. Steal Your Sacks.
I mean, he got one. Look,
he's like the Trey Songz of the NFL.
hey, look. Sometimes Cam's right there taking them. You know what I mean? If you're knocking on the door, you're knocking on the door. Sometimes you're going to get through first. Hey,
listen.
One though I think was Cam. I do think that when I watched it, I thought Cam had it, but there wasn't indisputable video evidence to overturn it to get it changed.
Yeah. Coach,
when Cam was talking about he was there, and then I went back and looked at it, I was like, maybe.
Yeah. Let the coach do a challenge flag on the sack. Look, I'm with you. I think that there's been times where I've been critical of him at times, and I think justifiably so. I mean, there were times where there were preseason. I don't think it was last preseason, but I think it was the one before where he was dominant. He was and I was like, wow, this guy came to camp ready. And this season, it didn't plan out that way. And I think, you kind of get into a mode where, oh man, that comment in chat is funny. I think Yeah, that's funny. I see you, Casey. But yeah, I think you get into a mode where you now you want to see it in the season, and then you see it in the season. It's like, okay, well, is it consistent? And remember, we had this conversation. It was a couple of years ago, and it was about the Saints' run defense. Like, is it real? Is it real? Is it real? Is it real? And at some point, you just got to look at the evidence, right? You got to say, okay, well, is it real or is it not? They're the number one run defense in the NFL, number one, number two that year. And I'm getting there with him. I'm starting to say, you know what? However, he gets the sack. He's getting the sack. He's getting sacks. He got 7.5. He's number 3 in the NFL behind Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald. It is what it is. It is what it is. What can I say?
Man. It's 2020. Like, anything can happen.
Anything can happen. What can I say? There's nothing I can say to refute the fact that that man is number 3. That's the facts, right? And so he's performing. Do I think he's the best pass rush on the team? No. Is he? Just be. But
he's not. But
go ahead.
He's not, but you gotta. He's producing, and he's very good. He's very good. And he's opportunistic, no doubt. But he's there. Like, he's in the backfield. He's taking advantage of it. Is he a 15 sack guy every season? No, but he's on pace for 15 sacks right now. And
what does it mean?
Even if it slows down, like, he's gonna get 10 to 12, I think, at least, like, just off of effort.
Just steal your sacks. I mean, he's gonna steal another 3 sacks, 2.5 sacks. He's gonna steal 2.5 sacks. Come on.
Speaking of the run defense, they're gonna break that record, the streak without 100. And look, I like, people have been coming at me because I made like a comment on one of these. I don't know if it was the last podcast or the podcast before, where I was kind of like, that's such a stupid stat. Let me explain why I don't like the stat. I don't think they should be recognized for breaking the streak. My point on that is that it's a symptom of having a great run defense. And that stat alone does not tell a story. You need to talk about the yards per carry, where they rank in the league. 2015, they had like one of the worst run defenses, and they only allowed one 100-yard game, I believe, that year. Alvin Kamara, I think, is the most talented running back in the NFL.
Never runs for 100 yards.
Go look through his list. I think he has 2 100-yard games. How many times would you say he's been dominated? Not many.
That doesn't happen, especially when he's healthy.
I would bet there's 115 to 120 100-yard rushing performances a season across the league, which means you have an 80% chance of not having somebody run for 100 yards against you. And that's because, like, committees, and it's a passing league, and the way games are played, the Saints have the number 1 run defense, I believe. Somebody can fact check me on that. If they're at number 1, they're like in the top 5 since the beginning of this streak. That's the stat that matters. They have the best run defense in the league in terms of yards per carry. This other thing, it's a symptom. It's a symptom of it, and it is something that should be highlighted. You're going to break the streak, but just saying that alone, that's all I was saying, is like, when you just say that alone, it doesn't really mean anything. And then, look, they have the number 1 run defense in the league. Last year, they gave up 180 yards to Houston in the opener. Nobody got 100 yards in that game, but like,
they got ran over.
Yeah, more often than not, they're the best run defense in the league in terms of yards per carry. I just think you need to add more context to it than just saying it's been 44 games or whatever it's been. That's all. It's a good stat. I respect the run defense. I just don't think that the conversation provides enough context. I just want more context on top of this weird stat that I think in certain circumstances doesn't tell a story.
Yeah, I mean, I commented last week that I just wish that they would just give up 100-yard rusher so that talking point can be over, because I don't think it means anything. I
think it means something. I mean, I think it means that they have like the best run defense in the league, but you tell the story another way. That's just like, do you tell the story of them having the best run defense, and then that's like the 7th paragraph in the story that like it's been this long.
All right, that's a better way to put it. But I guess what I'm saying is, how many did the Saints? Okay, say if the Saints hold a team to 20 points, okay, but the offense scores 7. Okay, in the middle of the 4th quarter, probably beginning of the 4th quarter, probably even mid-3rd, that team is going to start running the ball, right? And the defense had a good game. You kept them 20 points, 20 under points. Right. That's a relatively. They're going to run the ball, and just by volume alone, they can average 3 yards a carry. But if they run it enough, they're going to get there, right? So it does require some context. And
I think it's a large enough sample though to know that they have a very good run defense over a prolonged period of time.
That's fair.
But I mean, look, even like in a game like this, like the Bucs didn't not run because of They didn't run because the offense
they
was
just
the best
didn't
run
even
defense
choose
they
to
had.
run.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't even put the
Drew
run in the
Brees
game plan.
was just lighting people up in the run game so they couldn't run. I mean, but,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But
It's a lot
I
of
do think the
context.
sample size is it's pronounced enough that we can say that their run defense is
Acknowledge that
incredible.
they've had a good run defense, better than good run defense over the past few years. And listen, every team that has a good run defense, they're going to have games where the run defense isn't. I thought the Saints ran the ball well against the Bucks this game. They ran it well enough, and the Bucks have a really good run defense. You can probably make a case that it's better than the Saints. I would probably say so. They ran the ball on them, right? It's just, it could be one game and your whole streak goes away and you're still a good run defense.
Right.
Your scheme didn't change over that one game. So, but listen, I want to make sure we.
Speaking of the run defense, just real quick, like I think as we're talking about it, I think Quan's going to play a big part in a handful of games. Minnesota, I think having him against Dalvin Cook and just the range to get out.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to chat about. Just
the Kansas City running back,
Hilaire. Yeah.
Hilaire. Yeah.
No H.
Who else do they got? Who else is on the schedule?
San Francisco. I don't know if Tevin Coleman, he's one of those guys that can be schemed, that can be problematic. They have McCaffrey coming the second game this season. He'll probably be back healthy. They play the Eagles. Miles Sanders is a good running back when he's healthy. Just thinking through the schedule. I don't have it in front of me, but those are some of the teams with running backs where you look at it and say, okay, well, this is a matchup. This is a guy that can do. And Dalvin Cook, listen, that guy right there, he's 1A, 1B. He's pretty ridiculous right now. I mean, come on.
You hold him under 100, now you're doing something.
Yeah. I think when
they're going to give him the ball too.
They're going to give him the ball. The year they held Zeke under 100 a couple of years ago is when me and you finally were like, okay.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even
the 100 call.
Yeah, it was like just run defense. Forget the 100 yards. It was just like run defense good. Zeke couldn't do anything. So I think that was one of those games where it kind of stood out.
We waited until November to crown him. Listen, man, we made him prove themselves for like 10 weeks. That was late in the year. That was like the week before Thanksgiving, wasn't it? It was late in the year. That game was late in the year.
It was late in the year. It was late in the year. Yeah, it was very late in the year.
Basically watched the MVP that night.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We were reluctant
because
we watched a lot of bad defense. We watched a lot of bad defense for years.
And also, I think it was years. And then there were times where they just would have a lapse for a couple of series, and then they would come back. And so you're like, oh, well, this is the game where the run defense collapses. And then someone, they stop a guy, and then they stop a guy again, and they stop a guy again. And next thing you know, the guy has 60 yards, right? And it's always like they give away. I think it happened against the Bears. Like they'll give away this one long run. And you're like, okay, well, here it comes. And then there's no more. The yards per carry are like 3 or 2 yards per carry, 3 yards per carry for the remainder of the game. So, they had to earn it. But I think now, after this many years, they do get the benefit of the doubt. I think they're a good run defense, right? Are they the best? It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter who's the best at something. If you're good at something, then that's the strength of your team, and that's kind of how I look at it. So, I want to give a little love to David Onyemata. I think that
the Manitoba Mauler.
I think that's you. You coined that. You know what though? Let me say one thing before we move to the Manitoba Mauler. I just think that there's 100% chance that Sean Payton had something somehow a message got across about Bruce Arians saying that Donovan Smith had the easiest guy to block. I mean, if I'm Donovan Smith, I'm yelling at my coach because they put Davenport on me. They put everybody on that man. He got killed all game.
Well, I think Bruce Arians is a good coach, but that guy talks way too much. He says way too much. He says so many things that are just they're just out.
Easiest guy to block, like who says that?
And then he's like, he was trying to say that like Mike Evans was open throughout the game, but they just didn't throw him the ball. So like, what are you saying? Are you saying like first of all, he wasn't open? Like he just wasn't, and we can go through and prove that the 28 plays that Marshawn was on him.
It's a fact.
The guy wasn't open. Yeah,
it's a fact.
It's a very. So okay, if that's true, are you saying your quarterback sucks? Like now, are you throwing him under the bus? Like I don't think he thinks out some of the things he says, and they can be taken many ways. And it's just
Yeah.
He just says things, and I think he's like trying to protect Mike Evans, but it's just a lie. And now
remember week 1 where Brady threw the interception and he said it was Brady's fault, and then next day he was like, "Oh well, it was on Mike Evans," and it's like, just don't comment on it. you could just not say anything, and and look, and it's good for his commentating career, but it's, as a football coach, it's like, it's, I don't know, if I was a player, I don't need my coach calling me out after the game unless I need to be called out after the game. I guess that's.
He's had some comments on Antonio Brown too. Just say like we're handling that in house, and don't say anything.
Yeah.
Like, you got the guy on your team. You're just
one mistake and he's out of here. Like, okay, he knows that. Yeah,
that's all you got to say. But yeah, I mean, just I don't know, man. He just says some things that are just like, man.
Yeah,
like,
well, Mr. Studios. Well, NFL Trey Songz made him pay for that. That's all I know. Now back to the Mauler. Get his man his flowers, man. Come on.
Man, he's outstanding. He really is. Yeah, when he got that contract, I was a little bit like, wow, that's a lot of money. Like, I didn't think they had to pay him that much. Yeah. You see it though, and you see why other teams were interested in him. And I think
absolutely.
Again, I think it's a lot like what we were just saying about Trey. I think it's the same conversation we had before about Davenport, is that the mental and the physical is coming together.
Yes.
For him, the road was long. I mean, look, he's coming from Canada. They play off the line of scrimmage. He had never been lined up over anyone in the NFL. He contributed early, but it's not a surprise to see him ascending and continuing to get better and better. This is kind of like he went through college basically, and now this is like he's in the pros. Like he had like his seasoning the first few years in the league. It was like an internship almost because of how raw he was. And
yes,
I would point to him. He's someone that was able to contribute right away. He's like at his position, but these guys that they draft, and it takes a while for them to kind of put everything together. I would say keep him in mind, keep Davenport in mind when you're kind of like ready to jump off the bridge on a conclusion with Zach Bond. Sometimes it just takes people a little bit while to get going. And I think Bond's learning curve is significantly longer than he's playing a whole new position. But it's just I know like Saints fans all the time, it's a project. Every year they're drafting a project, and people are probably sick of projects.
Big Fish, Bond, Onyemata, Davenport. Yeah, that's a good point. That's Ruiz, yeah, he's at a slow start, but let's hold our judgment on that. But yeah, I just think Onyemata, listen, they prioritized re-signing him, right? They re-signed Andrews Pete because they were like, oh well, there's a chance we can re-sign Andrews Pete, but they chose, and I remember Mickey Loomis saying this in the offseason. They said, he was our priority, and then we was able to make it work with Pete. So they knew what they had in him. And it's crazy that he was the defensive tackle selected in the, I think, 3rd round, and he's the one he's the one that seemed to have worked out. I mean, that's funny. I'm looking at chat, but yeah, and so I definitely
for the podcast listeners, Kevin wears this polo that's like his arms are ready to pop out of it. Like he had me order him a small. Like, it's like, dude, like you're way too big.
This is an extra large. It's an extra large.
Pop out of the polo so I can get the new one.
It's an extra large. Let's meet in the middle at large. Okay.
I can screen share on this and pull up the receipt, man. It's not an extra large.
Okay, it's a medium. All right.
Real quick.
Yeah. I don't need that smoke, man. Screenshots of my shirt.
Oh man,
that's funny. But yeah, I mean, these guys are playing well, man. These guys are playing well. I think Davenport, there's a marked difference of the pass rush when he's in the game. I think he is the best 1A, 1B, depending on whether it's him or Onyemata. I think those guys are rushing the passer better than anyone on the team right now. Cam is probably coming in 4th. I don't know, right? So we'll see. I think there's some meat on the bone to be had there, but I definitely think if the secondary continues to play well, those guys keep rushing the passer, then you'll see Cam. You'll see him. We'll back into form eventually. Last thing
I want to talk. I want to go. No. I want to go back to the Super Bowl talk, and I want to know where you stand. Where's your meter?
See, I didn't want to go. It's
I mean,
higher
you kind of gave me hell in the
listen.
text when I told you this. So
Guys, listen. All right, so let's just put it out there. Nick was texting me. He was like, "Yeah, I think this team can win the Super Bowl." And I was like, "I don't know what team you're talking about." Yeah, let's just put it up, because I was watching them suck. Right, I was watching them suck, and I use, that's a strong word, right? That's strong language. But at the time, they were not playing well, and I said, "Look, the potential is there. The potential is there. They haven't shown it. They haven't shown it. This is the first game. This is the first game all year where I didn't have to watch the fourth quarter. I did, but it feels good not having to watch it, right? Like there's a lot of stress, in some of these games, and so this is the first time all year, and so through the first, I think, what's their record? 6-2 now. The first, however many games, I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen a team that I thought could be a Super Bowl team. And again, I didn't think it wouldn't happen. I just said, okay, well, let me see when Mike comes back. And the last point I'll make is, me and Nick agreed that we think that the offense would get better. Right. We said,
oh yeah, I mean, come on, that was,
yeah, we both said in the chat, right? This is our private chat. I was like, you know what? The offense will be fine. Mike will come back. Emmanuel will continue to get better. Sean and Drew, they're just going to figure it out. I said this. I think the pass rush is the only thing that can save the defense. That was what I said. And the secondary showed up. I think the pass rush is still the strength of this team. I think that they will be the better unit if they stay healthy, and they'll help the secondary. But if the secondary is playing like this, whole different conversation. Marshawn Lattimore is the X factor. He just changes the whole conversation. Like, it's hard to even talk about it without knowing. Like, what if he shows up? What if week 1 through 7 or 8, Marshawn shows up for the remainder of the season? Then it's a different conversation. So, but I'm with you. You one up me on that one, but I do want to.
No, I mean, they aren't there yet. I mean, so like, I'm just curious.
I need to see more.
Where's your confidence?
I'm feeling way. If I was feeling
like on a 1 to 10, 10 being like they're gonna do it.
Oh gosh, 7.
All right.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's just
I think I'm a little higher, but I think it's because some of the teams that I think are in the mix are as flawed, if not more flawed.
That's a really good point.
There isn't a juggernaut yet, and I think this team has as good a chance as anybody to work itself into one.
I mean,
look, I'll give you this. It was a little bit wild for me to hit you after the Bears game and be like, yeah, they're going to win the Super Bowl.
It was the Bears game. Yes, I'm glad you said that. I was like, bro,
I was seeing they're doing like little things on defense that are getting better, and you see these things coming together. And I'm just gonna go back to the offense was a given to me. And like, people watching this probably saw me roll my eyes when you brought it up. Like, it was just so stupid that the way those conversations were about them, and it's just like, it's done and da da da. Like,
we always agreed on this point.
There were so many missing players, and like, man, I hate it when people say these dumb things, because it makes my job harder, because then I got to start writing about these topics that I think should just be whistled by. Like, oh, Breeze is not having, the greatest start to the season. Well, his best receiver's gone, and he's thrown to these people he's never played with before. But, his career is over, even though you can see Emmanuel Sanders not running his route to the right depth, and Drew having to pump the ball and hold it and throw it off his back foot because there's a guy hitting him. But, the pass hit the ground and he's inaccurate. And now he's done because he's 41, and I'm looking for reasons to come on, man. And it's just, it was such an annoying thing.
It is. And I think I'm glad that we've been, you said it earlier, I'm glad that we've been really consistent on this, because it's a lot of takes out there. And there's some receipts. No need to go there, but I definitely think that I think we were ahead of that one. And I think it was clear just looking at the film. It wasn't that the ball was coming out any different. I think some of the accuracy stuff we spoke about early was a few passes, maybe 2 more passes than we usually see in a game, right? And I think that was something that stood out. But for the most part, the ball, he isn't throwing the ball any different this year than he did maybe 2 years ago or 1 year. I mean, he's the same guy for the most part, right? And because the offense is the same. So, but for me, it was, hey, why is Chicago's why can't you keep Chicago in the 20 points, right? I think those were some of the things that and I didn't kill him for the Carolina game, because I think that's a good offense. But yeah.
Well, a defensive back for another team, like TC and all the talk, he hit me up like early in the season. He's like, why are you guys like, why is everybody saying this stuff? Like he looks like Drew. It's Drew. It's like, it's just, they gotta work it out. It's just the same exact way. And I think you're seeing it now. And look, the Carolina game, he showed he still has that ability to lift people up and make them look better. So, absolutely. I mean, that's significant too. I didn't know he still had that in him. And I don't know if he's consistently, like, you give him Marquez Callaway and Deontay Harris, Traquan Smith, and he wins every game with them. But I think in spurts he can still make those players better, and it's not all about just building an infrastructure around him and lifting him up, which I do think needs to take place. But in moments, there's still that there where he can.
As long as he don't need to do it every week, right? You don't want him to have to do it every week, but in those special moments, I mean, we can talk about was it 3 straight weeks where they scored they scored a touchdown before halftime, right? So you don't need him to be, Hall of Fame Drew, 15 minutes of, 12, 15 minutes a quarter for 4 quarters a game for 16 weeks a season. You just need him to, be that guy when it's needed. And I definitely think that's who he's been. But I'm looking at the secondary. I think the pass rush, I don't see anything about the pass rush that would make me think that these guys are about to slow down. And if anything better, I think Davenport is still finding himself, and it's crazy that he's finding it himself, and I think being like top 5 in the NFL in pressure rate, which is ridiculous. But I definitely want to see if the secondary continues to play like they are. I think when you taste it a little bit, when you experience it a little bit, and I think you got to remind yourself every year who you are. And I think a game like this can be one of those games where they're like, when Marshawn is like, oh yeah, okay, I'm Marshawn Lattimore. I can shut down who I want to shut down, right? I've done it. I like the Baldy breakdowns and the press coverage from it, and everyone's talking about me, and he was retweeting stuff and tweeting at Mike Evans, whatever. Okay, yeah, let me get some more of that smoke, right? And all right, I'm gonna come out and do it next week. So I think doing it and experiencing it will definitely, kind of get those guys a little bit more incentive to play better in the coming weeks, because the secondary can change the secondary can take you to the Super Bowl if they play up to their ability. So hopefully we can see them do that. All right, guys. Well, that's gonna do it for us. This is a live stream. We got
nothing went wrong.
Nothing went wrong. Thank you guys for showing up. If you guys got some like super last minute questions, pop it in the chat before we close. You know what though? I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to put something in the chat, because I do want to ask Nick one more question. What do you think? And you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier. What's your expectation what do you think Quan Alexander is going to bring to this team? Because they've been playing more dime lately. Like, do you think that changes when he comes back? Like, what do you think he brings to this defense? What's going on with him?
I think some of the heavy dime, I think, is a little bit more specific to Tampa Bay. I mean, they have been playing a lot of it, but it's like exclusive in those 2 games. It's been a lot more nickel in other games. So hold on one second. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a natural fit. He just kind of slots in. I do think one of the things that he's going to do that's going to be interesting is his coverage ability allows you, I think, to do more with DeMario. DeMario's been playing at Mike. I think DeMario's a better Will than he is a Mike. I think he's superb at both, but I think Will's his better position. Quan is a Will. I don't think that's going to change, but I think it gives you some interchangeability at times between those 2 players to pick your spots to highlight some of the stuff that DeMario does well. Yeah. We mentioned the range. I mean, this stretch of the schedule, I think it's important to have that other player. I think it's something that was an issue earlier in the season, getting to the flats. They've gotten better at it. Their DBs have gotten better at it. Yeah. But if you have 2 linebackers that can get, hit that triangle, that's huge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We'll see. He's going to start practicing this week. I think his health is a big deal. So we'll see how the health comes together. He did start practicing in San Francisco. If he doesn't start playing right away, if it isn't even a huge amount of snaps, if he comes out and plays 15 snaps or whatever, if it's slow going, that's not a big deal. I think if you get him comfortable by Christmas, that's good enough. And they have the DBs to cover it. Alex Anzalone isn't a bad player. He's still good. Like, you can play with him and it's not going to hurt you. You aren't dying to get Quan out there, but He's going to help you. And if you can get him full speed, like I said, by Christmas and you get those last couple of weeks to kind of get the defense, fully geared up for the playoffs, that's a good situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I think that's the best case scenario for him. Like you said, you don't need him right now, but he is someone that you would like to, get acclimated to the defense and kind of get his feet wet and start, just kind of giving him some small amount of snaps and let him build up. So I do see a question in chat. So Jonathan, thanks for the question. He says, "Do we keep T-Rex after this year?" I will leave that to the expert Nick Underhill.
I think he's pricing out, man. I really do. I think he's pricing out.
He is too. Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Like if Kyle Van Noy can go and get a big contract, I don't see any reason why this guy can't. Like he's playing just as Van Noy. He's a Patriot. He had found another Patriot-like system. Patriots tend to get overpaid for some reason. People expect them. And look, like Flores, whatever, but like it's weird. Like when I see like somebody do really good at the Patriots, I assume they're going to be a couple ticks down, especially when it's not like like if you can get Chandler Jones, Chandler Jones is going to be Chandler Jones. Yeah. But like if it's an underachiever who's overachieving coming from there, but look, if he can get paid, somebody's going to pay you for these sacks.
Oh yeah.
With I don't think their cap situation is super dire. I think they can get to where they need to be, cutting minimal amount of players. It's 22 where the huge issue is, but keeping somebody that's going to be worth a lot more than you expected, I think becomes a lot harder given that situation. So I don't know if the cap turns into casualties, but there might be this like hidden thing where you can't keep guys that maybe you want to keep.
Outplay
which is crazy. Like I did not think this would be the conversation with
yes.
With
someone's gonna pay him more than $10 million a year, and I'm not sure it's gonna be the Saints. But I mean, if he keeps this up, maybe he forces your hand. So, we'll see. Thanks for the question, Jonathan. Caleb has a question. He says, "I'm curious what Nick thinks Davenport's ceiling is." So, Nick, he is specifically asking you. So, I will pass this question to you.
Well, I'll pass it to Dennis Allen, who last week I kind of asked him a similar question, and he said they drafted him and they thought he could be one of the better pass rushers in the NFL, and they're starting to see some of those traits come to fruition. I think he has the athletic ability, and I think his mental game is getting to that level. I don't think he's there yet, but I think the traits are there for him to get to that level. Now, does he health, motivation, all this stuff? Like, and I don't think motivation is an issue for him, but I'm just saying there's a lot of stuff like that it's a long road to get there. Health being the main thing for him, and just continually working at his craft, which he has done to his benefit. Every year you see him get better.
You can tell.
The bull rush. I think his bull rush is probably, I think that specific move, and it would be impossible to quantify this opinion because there's so many guys in the league, but I think with that specific move, the bull rush, I would argue, I can't argue it because I don't actually know how everybody in the league's bull rush is, but I would expect his bull rush to be one of the 5 to 10 best in the whole NFL. And then along with that, you see him rushing more to the inside, which is, another more evidence of his growth. So
is he reading tackles, like stuff like that? You spoke about that. You spoke and wrote about. There's an article on the website, guys. Go check it out. Just kind of what Nick thinks, he can be, and some quotes from DA. So make sure you guys go to NewOrleans.Football, and it's a really good article. I think I may have coerced Nick into writing that article because I was like, bro, why you don't want to talk about Davenport? I was like, no, you don't be dodging me. And the article came out 2 days later, so you guys can thank me for that article because I'm bullish on him. You guys know, anyone that listens to this pod know I'm just it's nothing personal. I don't know Davenport. I mean, he grew up, an hour south from where I'm living, but I don't know the guy. You watch the film and he's just good. Like, he's good. Every time you turn on the film, he's playing well. And I'm like, well, if this guy's healthy and look, he comes back 3 or 4 games ago. I forget how many. The pass rush just gets better. I'm just saying, I think he can be really good if he keeps at this current trajectory.
Last one here, because anything over 60 minutes, I got to pay Kevin overtime. So
yeah. And I know the boss ain't trying to, and the boss is not on this podcast, by the way. It's funny, and I'm looking at you, and it's funny every time I'm like about to insult you. It's like Shireen.
Are you saying the filibuster? Are you starting to filibuster here to go over 60?
You know it. I'm listen, but every time I'm like about to shoot you an insult, I'll just see Shireen, like her eyes like looking at me like it is kind of intimidating because she doesn't look happy. I'm like, yeah, you getting saved from, she's saving you a lot here. All right, last question. Swift says, final record prediction. My prediction is whatever Nick says.
I'll say 4. I think 4 losses. I think 4 losses is fair. I don't really know where they.
I hate that we think alike, man. I hate that because I wanted to say 4. I wanted you to say 3 because I was going to say 4.
I'll say the Chiefs and then
one more.
It's just Falcons. It's just there's always a game where they shouldn't lose that they lose. Maybe that was already. Maybe that already happened earlier this year against
the Raiders. Are like good. Though.
That might have been.
Yeah, the Raiders are good.
But then they do things where I'm like, maybe they aren't that good. So maybe the Raiders game is that game. I don't know, but the only one where I would say, and they might very well end up beating the Chiefs, but I just think that, if you're just being fair, that's one where you would probably
give them a loss. If they beat the Chiefs, then
yeah,
I mean, the Super Bowl talk is gonna be crazy.
I think they can beat the.
I do too because I've seen the Chiefs play, and I think they can do some things to the Chiefs. I think they can pass rush it. Now listen. You got to pass rush the Chiefs. you have to pass rush the Chiefs. You have to like. And Mahomes is good outside the pocket, but you just can't let him pick you apart. But we'll cover that nightmare when we're there. It's a few games. San Francisco is on the menu right now. So, but yeah, I'm kind of with Nick. I said 4. I was hoping Nick would say 3 because I think 4 is I think that's a safe place to put it, right? When you look at their schedule, and they got some weird games in there, but I think they should be favorite. They should be the favorite to win every game except for the Chiefs game, and I think we understand why. So, all right, guys. Well, I was trying to filibuster to get over an hour. It worked, and I get a little overtime. That means my sweater will maybe come a day early. It's getting cold, man. Well, it's not. It's actually hot in Texas. But listen, when it get cold, I want my NewOrleans.Football sweater and no more tight shirt jokes. So, guys, listen. All right, you guys know the deal. You guys know the energy. Go to NewOrleans.Football /subscribe. Pick a tier. We referenced so many articles today. I mean, the Davenport one, the film studies on the website, the post game stuff is on the website. There's a video section where Nick is doing like these fancy videos that look like ESPN, NOF. Go check that out. There's a podcast section on the website, news and analysis. There's live streaming, as you guys who are listening now can see. You can go to Periscope and search for Nick_Underhill. Twitch. I'm excited about Twitch because I like Twitch. Twitch.tv /NewOrleans Football. Make sure you guys are following that channel. You can click the notification bells. And I want to say most importantly, but really importantly, go to YouTube, search Nick Underhill, and subscribe and like the videos. It helps a lot. You guys kind of know how YouTube works. So the more subscribers we get, the more likes we get, the more outreach it is. And it just helps, right? It helps Nick build his platform. It kind of helps build out the outreach, and it's free. It doesn't cost anything to go to YouTube and click a like and subscribe. So you guys make sure you follow Nick on Twitter at Nick_Underhill. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Wars Jr. With that said, thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week. We out.